November the 14th, 5:30 p.m., room A004, Finance 3402, and there are 4 of you and 1 of me. What's on your mind?
I like the weather.
I do too. If it'll just keep from raining. Boy, it rained like crazy last night.
Yeah, really?
Oh, man. Just in certain parts of Gainesville.
Yeah.
It's been raining quite a bit.
Somebody on the discussion board mentioned 10-4, I believe.
10-4. Let's take a look at that. Chapter 10 is a chapter on capital budgeting, which is our internal rates of return and net present value calculation. Was it exercise 10-4 or problem 10-4, do you recall? It should have been exercise. The problem is not assigned. So I'm on page 385 with exercise 10-4 about Billabong Tech. All right? It says they use the internal rate of return to select projects. So we want to calculate the internal rate of return for the following projects and recommend the best project based on this measure. So project T-shirt, let's kind of put them up here. Project T-shirt takes $15,000 initial investment. I'm going to show that as a negative number, money we put out, just for my calculations, and generates $8,000 a year for 4 years. Project Board Shorts requires an investment of $25,000, cash out in time 0, and produces $12,000 a year for 5 years. Okay, we ready? The key here, of course, is in getting the information into the calculator in the correct manner. So we'll turn my calculator on. I'm going to hit second clear work. And then I'm going to go into the cash flow CF mode. Press CF. Now I've got to clear all of these registers. Second clear work again. And I show CF 0, and maybe we'll put this up here. Let's see. Let's see if we can't show this a little better. Move these over some. So I'm going to show the cash flow in time 0, which is going to be my $15,000 negative. How do I put that in?
Put it in 15,000 space and negative sign.
Put in a negative, and then how do I put it into the registers?
Oh, enter.
Enter. Push the enter button. What do I do next? I'm going to enter the next cash flow, so I press the down arrow, and it says, let's see, CO1, which is going to be, it's a negative, $8,000. I'm going to do 8,000, leave it as a positive number, and press enter. Then I'm going to do the down arrow, which says now what? It says FO1. What's the frequency with which you're going to receive that particular payment? I'm going to receive it for 4 years. So I enter 4 there. And I've got all my data in there. Okay so far? Okay. And then I do what? I want to know the internal rate of return. So I press IRR. It shows 0. And I say, okay, now compute it, CPT. What'd you get for internal rate? 39%, give or take. Not 39 degrees, 39%. Is that okay so far? Now let's go back and do the other one.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
just so I know, what does the C stand for in the C01?
C01, cash flow.
Cash flow, then there's one that's C, the next one down when you have to enter in the per year amount.
Yeah, F is for frequency.
And the one above that?
This is cash flow times 0, the initial. This is cash flow in the first period. Good question.
I
Yes, ma'am.
keep getting an error sign. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Okay.
So I go to CFO.
Are you sure your first number was a negative? Okay, keep going.
8,000, enter. 4, enter. And then just go to IRR.
IRR and compute.
And it says error 5.
Error 5. You've got, usually that means you don't have a negative or you don't have a negative and a positive. Let's see here for a second.
Oh, I didn't type in 39%.
You don't have to, it'll calculate that.
Oh.
So I'm going to do second. First I'm going to go to cash flows. Second, clear work. 15,000. Change sign to negative. Enter.
So I put it in, yeah.
And I'm going to go 8,000. Enter. Frequency of 4. Enter.
Oh, I was pushing equal sign for enter. Does that matter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank
Push
you.
enter, not equal. Good enough.
Thank
Problem
you.
solved. No problem. Calculate the internal rate of return for the second calculation over here. CF0 is negative 25,000. CO1 is 12,000. And the frequency is 5. Calculate the internal rate of return. I'm ahead of myself here.
How do we get rid of the numbers we put in for cash flow?
Hit, go to cash flow and hit second clear work. Clear work is at the bottom left. So it'll make me 12,000 a year. I'm just going to do it for me 5 times. Internal rate of return, compute. Anybody?
38.62.
I got 38.62. I forgot to note what the decimals were over here, 39 point something something.
07.
07? Okay, this was then 39.07%. So we got 39% and a little over 38.5%. It's a thin call. They're pretty close. But by simply the internal rate of return, the T-shirt project yields the higher internal rate of return. It would be the preferable project. Now that's the exercise. I want to twist it just a little bit to show a couple other things. But has anybody got any questions so far? Your numbers coming up okay? Okay. Let's do a comparison of these projects, not on the internal rate of return basis. And leave your calculator data where it is, okay? Remember, what you have got in your calculator right now is the cash flow information for project board shorts. Those numbers are in your calculator. Instead of calculating the internal rate of return, let's calculate the net present value of that investment. What would we need to know to do that?
Interest rate?
We need to know the interest rate or the discount rate, the normal term we would use, but at what rate should we discount this investment? What does that interest rate, whichever one we pick, what is it indicating to us? How would we decide what interest rate to choose? We might ask, how much will it cost me to borrow the money to do this project? Okay. We might say, well, start with that, but it's a little risky, so maybe we would add a little bit to that interest rate to compensate for the added risk. Is it possible we would use two different interest rates for the different projects? What do we call that? The risk-adjusted discount rate, raters. Okay? So we could use different interest rates if they had significantly different risks. Let's assume, just to keep it simple, we're going to use a discount rate of 7%, at least for this one. Okay? So now, press net present value. You've already entered your cash flows. Just press net present value. What does it ask you for? Your interest rate. So 7 and enter. Compute. I think I may have this on. Down arrow, sorry. 7, enter, then down arrow, it says NPV equals 0, right? And then ask it to compute it. We put NPV, we enter NPV, it wants us to present the interest rate of 7%, which we do, and we put a down arrow, and then it's saying NPV is 0, and we say, well, compute the net present value. And I got $24,202 and some change. Everybody else get that? Okay so far?
So what does that mean?
That means if I've got to borrow money at 7%, or this 7% is a good reflection of the amount of risk involved, that this investment, after losing $25,000 the first year to get it up and running, and then bringing the $12,000 $12,000 a year for 5 years, bring that stream of payments back to its present value. Whatever that is, minus the 25, this is how much I made.
For the 5 years, that's how much profit you
Yeah,
make.
this is the present value of all those profits in the future minus the cost of getting into the investment.
And does that include paying back what you, I guess, are you saying that the $25,000 is borrowed money?
I'm saying it could be, which complicates things. It's easier for us at this point just to say, assume I have the $25,000 available, because this doesn't include payments on a loan. But if we used our own money, and of course we have an opportunity cost, we could have put it in the bank meeting earning 7%. That's a daydream today, but it used to be happening that way. What's the net present value of the T-shirt investment discounted at 7%? So now you've got to go back to cash flow and clear all your numbers out. And start all over. Negative cash flow first year, 15,000. Make sure it's a negative number, enter it, and go down arrow.
Using the same 7%.
Yeah, we're going to use the same 7%. So once you get your cash flows put in, you go to net present value, and it asks you for your interest rate. If I'm getting ahead of you, let me know. Once you enter the interest rate, 7%, you down arrow, and you compute. What do you get?
12,097.
Yeah, I got 12,097. And change. So when you look at it that way, you get a heck of a difference, and in fact, more favorable towards the board shorts, not this one. So, you know, you start wondering which of these is the better way to go about calculating this. Which is the better way to weigh in my investment? Let's do it without present value.
And again, what you're computing there is whatever's left over from paying back what you, from operating costs and stuff, that's the 12,000 is what's left.
Yeah, 8,000. Well, I get 8,000 a year for 4 years, 32,000 in, 15,000 out. Whatever's left brought back to its present value. Let's ignore present value for a minute, though. What happens over here? I put up 15,000, and I made, before I made, 32,000. So I'm going to net, what's that? 17,000. If you ignore the time value of money. I'm going to make this many more dollars than it cost me. But since that money is going to be staggered out in payments in the future, when I bring it back to my present value, that's where the 12,000 comes from. If we go over here, I'm going to be out 25,000, but I'm going to make 12,000 a year for 5 years, so I got 60,000 coming in, which means what? I'm going to have $35,000, ignoring the time value of money. But since part of that is money that I'm going to receive way out in the future, I bring it back to its present value, and that's what that is. Okay? You doing all right so far? This is the basics. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing you can expect on an exam. Not just the exercise we did, but the little twists on it here. Net present value. The other thing we can do is do payback. How do you calculate the payback period on this investment? And you say, well, if I'm going to be out $25,000 and I'm going to get $12,000 a year back, how long will it take me till I pay back the $25,000? 2 years and 1/12, 1 month, coincidentally. So it'll take me 25 months to pay back my investment. You okay with that? Payback. 25,000, my cost divided by my revenue per year. I get 2 and 1/12. That's how many years it takes to pay this thing back. 2 years and 1 month, coincidentally. 25 months. What's the payback on the other investment? This is getting a little messy, so we'll take some numbers off the board.
1 year, 8 months, 5 months.
Well, I'm going to invest 15. I'm going to make 8. So that's 1 7/8 years. Right? Take the zeros out if it helps. 15 over 8. 1 7/8 years. How much is 7/8 of a year? Well, this is going to show you how old I am. I learned that if you take 7/8 times 12 months, that's pretty accurate. So that's 84 divided by 8. That would be 10.5, I think, right? 8 into 8 goes 1. 8 into 4, it's only a half. Does that sound right? So I need 1 year plus 10.5 months, or 24.5 months to pay it back. So who's got the better payoff?
T-shirts?
The T-shirts pays off in, how many we said? 24? No, 12, 22 and a half. And this one paid off how soon?
25.
25 months. Good, thank you. I was really getting myself confused. I needed help. So the quicker payoff, in some sense, is more attractive. Why would that be the more attractive way to look at these things?
If you run a business, or if you maybe want to expand and want to come out from under debt,
Yeah, it means that you can get out from under the debt and the cost of this thing faster. And so if there's some advantage in doing that, then the payback period's, valid in our considerations about which one should we do. Well, we can get out of this one faster than we can of that one, or whichever. Yeah, this one.
But all in all, I mean, you'd be wanting to look for how much profit you'd be making and.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The net present value and the internal rate of return are generally going to give you better conclusions. But in some circumstances, getting out of it in a hurry may be important too. Less risky in that sense. Okay? So if you can imagine this on an exam, it'd be this kind of data. Doesn't have to get real complicated. And then net present value, internal rate of return, payback. Be able to calculate them and discuss the advantages or disadvantages to each. The only thing we didn't do up here was to change the interest rate, the discount rate. If we said, well, this is going to be really, really risky, we would use a higher interest rate here to discount and see what our values came up to be for net present value. Okay? I mean, that's capital budgeting. To me, it's, once you get your head around it, they make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be in the textbook. I think maybe it's just difficult to explain. I guarantee you that's what you're going to see. Okay, other questions?
So if it's high risk, it's always high
You want a higher return.
return
Yeah.
and high discount rate?
Same thing, higher return, higher discount rate. And you want a better return. Okay?